Parshas Bereishis, Tafshin Pei Aleph, and how the years fly by. I'm always very humbled when I mention this. Nevertheless, it really has to be mentioned that tonight we begin year number 12 of our Nesivos Shalom Shir that started out at the Southside Sandwich Shop many years ago, started by the proprietor, Rabbi Yosef Motherpearl, who started the Shir as something that we thought would last 1 week. And now we are beginning year number 12 of having a Shir every single week. And this week's Parsha, Parshas Bereishis, is really a Parsha that needs to be studied very much in detail. And we really have to look at this Parsha not on a simple level. You need to look at it with the Mefarshim that are plentiful on this week's Parsha in order to get some kind of idea what is really transpiring in Parshas Bereishis. And to be quite honest, we're going to probably ask a lot more questions tonight than the answers that we're going to give, because it really is tough to answer a lot of the questions from the creation of the world to Adam and Chava and Cain and Hevel and so many of the other things that transpire during this week's Parsha. On the surface, there really are a lot of questions. And you know what's interesting, and we mention this all the time, we don't get to say Shir on Parshas Bereishis every year, because some years Simchas Torah falls out a day before Shabbos, and we don't get a chance to have a Shir, and we don't have a chance to prepare the Parsha sometimes, to learn the Parsha that well. This year, Baruch Hashem, we had just about an entire week to look over the Parsha, and I find that a little more, I was able to grasp a little more of an understanding on the Parsha. I did work on it over this week, and to be quite honest, there are so many years in this week's Parsha. Over 1,600 years go by in this one Parsha. Think about it, the world is now 5,000. We're in year 5,781. And over 1,600 years, somewhere between 25 and 30% of the history of the world takes place in Parshas Bereishis. So near the end of the Parsha, the Torah tells us that Vayinochem Hashem ki S.S.S. ha'adam. And however you want to understand this, Hashem Kaviyachol had regrets about creating man. Vayisyatzeiv el liboy. And if you once again try to understand, what does it mean that Hashem was down? Hashem was depressed. It bothered Hashem that he had created the world. Vayomer Hashem said, Emches ha'adam asher barasi me'al pnei ha'adamo. You know, the man that I created, I'm going to wipe him off the face of the earth. I'm going to wipe out man. Me'adam ad behema, all mankind, all life, v'yadoif hashamayim, even the birds in the sky. Ki nichamti ki asisim. I regret, Hashem says, once again, on a different level totally, right? But ki nichamti ki asisim. I regret that I made the world, that I created the world. And Nesivos Shalom tells us, of course, we need to know that on the surface, this concept of Hashem having regret about something that he did is really beyond our comprehension. And when we speak of Hashem, really, what is regret? What is being down? We know that Hashem knows and Hashem knew everything that would happen. Hashem knew when he created the world exactly how things would play out. And Hashem always knows what's going to happen. But once we ask that question, I'm going to get a little deep here tonight, more in the questions than the answers, as I mentioned. But once we get into asking a question like that, then what kind of regret did Hashem had? He knew how it would play out. We get into the deep discussion based on the Rambam. The Rambam in Perek Hay in Hilchas Tshuva speaks about and asks about how a person has Bechira. We know every person has the choice, right? In Judaism, in this way, we are pro-choice. Every person has a choice what to do. Every person has a choice how to go about their life. But how is it that people have a choice if Hashem knows the outcome in advance? How is it that you have a choice if Hashem already knows how you're going to behave and what you're going to do? So the answer to that question says in Nesivos Shalom, it's very, very deep, of course. It's very involved and it's very lengthy, and we really can't get into the depth of it. We can't get into the depth of this discussion right now. But basically, what one needs to know is that loy machshavoi sai machshavoi seichem, and that at the end of the day, we need to have absolute emunah that we don't have the mental capacity to understand the ways of Hashem. We have to have the absolute emunah that Hashem knows everything in advance, yet the choices are still ours. Now you're going to have to study Kabbalah, you're going to have to study very deeply into different facets and different ways of the world, and there are things written about this, but we, as plain old people, have to have emunah pshuta. You have to have complete emunah. Hashem knows everything, but every person, still has choice. And that's what emunah is, where we believe that. Which leads us to the question of the Klei Yakar. On our pasuk that we asked before, what is Vayinochem by Hashem? What did Hashem regret? So the Nesivos Shalom tells us that although we just mentioned that we can't fully grasp this, we can't even really think about it. However, when it says something in the Torah, we still have to try and understand to the best of our ability what's going on over here. What does the Torah say? Well, we're just going to skip over Parshas Bereishis because it's a little tough and it's a little beyond the comprehension. We have to try to understand what's going on here. And the Torah tells us at the beginning of this week's Parsha, let's start with that. Hashem saw the world, Vayar Elikim, Hashem created. Each day of creation, Hashem created things. And the Vayar Elikim, Hashem saw, V'hinei toiv ma'od. Not only was the world good, it was exceedingly good. Hashem created, and if Hashem says, and if the Torah says, that the world was toiv ma'od, that it was exceedingly good, then it doesn't mean it was toiv ma'od for that day. The Torah is nitzchias. It says it in the Torah. So everything, forever, the world is toiv ma'od. So what is this vayinochem? Klei Yakar's question, among other Mefarshim that asked this question too. So Nesivos Shalom says that one way to look at it is, of course, that the creation was toiv ma'od. Hashem created a beautiful world. Just look around. Look at everything. Look at the miracles of the human. Look at miracles of creation. Look at all the miraculous things that are going on around you every day. The world is exceedingly, exceedingly beautiful. It is toiv ma'od. And even at that time of toiv ma'od, there was bad from time to time. People did do things wrong, but it was happenstance. The world essentially was toiv ma'od. It was through and through, it really was very good. A person who wanted fought the Yetzer Hara, and you won, because good was the reigning supreme in the world, and good, the force of good, was so strong at that time. But then there was the Chet of Adam HaRishon in our Parsha, which is a whole subject unto itself. But there was the Chet of Adam HaRishon, and what the Chet of Adam HaRishon did was it affected the entire Bria. It wasn't just specific that Adam HaRishon did something wrong, right? The Nachash and Chava, the whole thing. In other words, bad now became part of the Bria. When Adam HaRishon did that and didn't listen to the commandment of Hashem, the subject of Ra, of bad, it became now part of the Bria. It changed the Bria. It made it into one that the Torah tells us now this week in our Parsha too, that Yetzer Lev HaAdam Ra Min Urav, that the Yetzer of a person is bad. The nature of a person, there is now bad in the world. And this really answers a little bit our question that we had. That if Hashem made the world and said that the world is toiv ma'od, and Hashem we know is a toiv u'meitiv, He does everything and He always wants the best. How do we see a world full of troubles? Look around, right? We're trying to answer this question, but look around. There's a world full of troubles. There's a world full of Yisurim. How is it that Hashem is toiv u'meitiv? The answer is that the essence of the world is really for us tisanagat Hashem al Hashem, the way the world was created. And the greatest pleasure that one can have in this world and the greatest happiness is to connect to Hashem and to be one and to be close to Hashem. But because of the chait of Adam HaRishon, that essence of good was now less. It was now tarnished. So with this principle, we could perhaps explain another big question over here. And we're going to ask a lot of questions, right? The Torah tells us that we're going to wipe out, Hashem said, I'm going to wipe out the world. Me'adam ad behema, and I'm going to, emches adam, from beginning to end, I'm going to wipe everything out. Big question. Weren't there those who had not sinned? You're telling me that every person, everyone in the whole world had sinned? Hashem's going to wipe everything out? What's going on over here? That's a huge question. What about children? There were small babies, there were small children in the world. Hashem is a toiv u'meitiv. He always does everything good. He's going to wipe out the entire world. There's going to be no one left, no children. Nobody had not sinned in the world. So with what we just explained, we can understand that now a little bit. And Nesivos Shalom tells us that the pagam of Adam HaRishon was one that infected the entire Bria. That Adam had bechira, Adam was able to choose, and he chose to sin. Adam was able to do that, and that is vayis atzev aliboy. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu was, quote, a little bit down. What does that mean? Because I put out so much good, and I gave you the choice. And now, by you making, on this first day, you made this choice. You chose not to listen to Hashem. You brought a ruach of bad. The world was toiv ma'od. But Adam used his bechira to create negativity in the world. Then ki nichamti ki asisim. Then Hashem had some kind of regret. It would have been so fantastic. Imagine a world where good, where the yates of a person is not ra min urav, where good reigns supreme, where there was always good. There was a little bit regret, quote, right, on Hashem's part, that the world did not turn out that way. But we need to take the confidence and understand that after the Mabul, Hashem made a bris, Hashem made the rainbow. And Hashem said, yes, I destroyed the world. And even if bad permeates the world from now on, Hashem said, it would not be taken out on the entire Bria. Once Hashem Taka went ahead in next week's Parsha and destroyed the world, Hashem said, I can't do that again. People have choices. People don't always make the right choices. But Hashem said, I'm not going to take it out on the entire Bria anymore. And as we see, so we see that the concept of Bereishis is not one, when we learn this Parsha, that we could just read the words. Yeah, no problem. Bereishis, bara Elokim. We go through Adam, Chava. Yeah, Hashem has regrets. I want to destroy the world. What did the snake do? What did all of this do? It's very, very complicated. But Nesivos Shalom gives us just a little bit of a way to think about the Parsha. That Hashem created a world that is toiv ma'od. And it always is and it always will be toiv ma'od. But just that little bit of innocence was taken away by the chait of Adam HaRishon. And when that was taken away, there was a ruach put in the Bria that we'll never have back. A ruach now where the powers of evil, the powers of bad, have power in this world. But it's up to every one of us to have that bechira, to work on ourselves, to try to do things better. Because although Hashem knows what's going to happen at the end, but Hashem tells you, you always have the choice to do things better. Let's learn that lesson from this week's Parsha.